So, Ian, welcome. Please, here you go.
I'm finding my Big Mac. I never go anywhere in the world without taking a Big Mac with me. Even if they're Big Macs where I go, I still bring a Big Mac with me. And I asked this gentleman, I wanted to say hello in Croatian. He said, hello. So hello. My name's Ian Beaner. I'm a special school teacher. I taught at a special school called Priory Woods School. That's in a very quaint fishing village called Middlesbrough in the UK. And where I was responsible largely for teaching children with, you would describe, profound and multiple learning difficulties. While there, I realized that my life was going to be organized by 3 words. And those 3 words are opportunity, motivation, and meaningful. Because that has been my whole life, looking for opportunities for our students to be able to interact with the world around them. Motivation, because they need to be motivated to do that. If somebody gives a child a switch, there has to be a reason to press it. It's no good just giving them it and saying, press this. What's in it for the child? They need something, right? And meaningful because our use of technology has to be meaningful. It has to have some purpose. And often in schools, I see lots of people using technology without any purpose. So those are my 3 big key words. This morning, I'm going to talk about early years. And early years are kind of a special area for me because early years students, in some ways feel like they have the most potential because we know the least about them. So I want to start really by talking about what do we want to use technology for? What's it about? What do we want it for? What do we have it in our classrooms for? Well, in the UK, it's so we can all become programmers. That's our curriculum now. Our students in year 1, year 2 will learn how to program. They understand algorithms, complicated computing terms. Now, this lady's shaking her head, and she's exactly right. Not for our students, right? Our students are different. However, everywhere I go, people talk to me about, well, we don't know the future, Ian. The future is going to be something completely different. Meet this chap. He is the BBC's emoji translator. He really has a job of explaining to TV producers which emojis need to go on the subtitles. Look at his face. Even he's surprised that he got that job. We live in a world where people say to me, shift happens, the future is unknown. We can't ever imagine what these children are going to face in their adult lives, what jobs they're going to do. They're going to do jobs that haven't been invented. They're going to use technology that nobody's thought about. Well, that's not really true for the children we're talking about, is it? Because we kind of know what their future is going to be. Their future is going to be littered with difficulties with communication, difficulties with their independence, being as independent as they possibly can, difficulties with literacy and numeracy and social skills and all of those things that happen to our students. We know what our students' difficulties are going to be. We know what their future is going to be. And if we're going to use technology in a way which is meaningful, it has to address those things. And that's been my life. That's why I'm here. That's why 25 years ago I made a singing hippopotamus that sang Wimoweh. I made that for a little boy who was 5, who had profound cerebral palsy, didn't speak, he was locked up like this, and spent his whole life waiting for people to do things for him. Waiting for things to happen to him. He had a switch. We gave him a switch. Look, Macaulay, here's a switch. Press it for us, please. And he went steadfastly and totally and utterly refused. And he refused because he didn't need to, because there was always one of my classroom assistants who would come and go, oh, let me do it for you, and press it for him. And he would press and he would look at the screen and be bored, and there was no real connection there. So I made that, and it made him laugh. And when I gave him a switch, he pressed it. Why? Because he liked people laughing. Because for him, cause and effect wasn't a hippopotamus. Cause and effect wasn't cars on the screen or cats. Cause and effect was how people respond to what we do. How people respond when we press a switch. Because that's the important bit. That's what cause and effect is, isn't it? It's being able to extend influence and control over the world we live in. And for me, that's been the most important thing. Providing kids like Macaulay with opportunities to do that. With tools that motivate them. And in a way which is meaningful, which is working towards children being able to do ever more things, to reach their potential. And that for me has always been the most important thing. I don't have very long, so I've got to talk really quick. My whole life has been about teaching children how to use technology while constantly listening to people telling me how technology is good for teaching children, how helping children learn. And there's kind of this real problem I have. I spend my whole life teaching people how to use a mouse when I should be using the technology to teach people. They say this program is wonderful, but my children, my students can't use it because it's too complicated, because there's too many buttons, because you need to use a mouse, because you have to have good fine motor skills. So things like that I find really, really difficult. So I look for, and especially in early years, technology which everybody can use. Because for me, that's the holy grail. It's lovely that a supplier, a company, might put some phonics things into the child's eye gaze machine. But if that phonics thing isn't the same phonics thing that the teacher uses to teach the rest of the class, we're isolating them already, aren't we? They're having to do something different, something special, not being part of that inclusive classroom that we all hope for. People often ask me what's the most effective technology that has ever come into special education. And they listen for words like interactive whiteboards. They're the best thing ever. Nope. They'll say things like, oh, well, we've had wonderful eye gaze technology. That's wonderful. Nope. It's been great, but it hasn't been the most effective. The one piece of technology that has completely, totally, and forever changed the way that we work is a camera. That camera up there, that camera is my camera from 1997. A Sony Mavica camera. It put floppy disks in. Some of you are too young even to remember floppy disks. You put a floppy disk in, you pressed a button, and it took a picture. 20 pictures on one floppy disk. You'd need 20 floppy disks for one picture now. But lots of the children in my school, in fact, every child that was able could take pictures. Why? Because I taught them. Put the ring round your neck so you can't drop it. Push the button, take a picture. Why? Why would I think that might be important? Because for most of the children I worked with, expressing themselves was the most difficult thing. Being able to talk about something, being able to write something, being able to share something was difficult. I had so many children that were able to express themselves with pictures that they would never be able to express themselves with a pencil. So by teaching a child how to take a picture, we opened up a whole new way for some children. However, the world has changed now, hasn't it? We no longer have Sony Mavica cameras. In fact, we don't even have cameras anymore. I think cameras are pretty much finished now. What do we have now? Phones, mobile phones. Everybody has a camera in their mobile phone. In schools, more often than not, it's not a mobile phone, it's one of these, right? This is the kind of thing we see in schools now. Teachers have these, oh, let me just take a picture of Jenny. She's pressing the switch. There, that's good. And the picture of John, he's doing his work. And that's what we do. This for me, and I hate to say this, but this has probably been one of the the most liberating tools we've had in the classroom, because this technology, pretty much almost everybody can use it. And I'm not a big fan, because I think with technology we need to identify what the child actually needs rather than say they need an iPad, let's see if they can use it. But in terms of using photographs and things, this is great. Could we switch you over to this screen, yeah? I just need to push a couple of buttons. Dum, dum, dum. So I'm going to do this really quick. I'm going to, let's take a picture. Could I borrow you? Is that all right? You come up here, that'll be fine. I just like embarrassing people. So here's what we can do just by taking a picture. You ready? No smiling. We're working. Serious. Well, this is an app called By Duck Duck Moose. It's free. I should have mentioned, everything I show is free. That's always a good thing, right? Take a photo. I'm coming close. No smiling. Working. Ready? You smiled. Again. Look. No smiling. Ready? No. Take it back. Picture again. No smiling. That'll do. Okay, ready? Go. Yes, that's fine. Thank you very much. Yeah. So this is a very, very, very simple app. You take a picture. All you're going to be able to do is touch the screen. Not easy. There's loads of apps, though, that let you hold the iPad and see the world through different eyes, with butterflies on the screen, or dragons, and moving around is wonderful. And in the handout, there's loads of examples of things like that. So this one, all I have to do is draw a line where your mouth is, like this. And just with the finger. And press this button here, and it says record.
Record in 3, 2, 1, go!
Hello! Croatian hello, that. You ready? Hello! Simple, right? So child that can make a noise can make a film. As a teacher, this excites me because my students can make anything talk now. They could make important things like historical characters talk. Or perhaps even more important things like apples and beef burgers talk. Wouldn't it be great if you could have a beef burger, a hamburger, argue the case for healthy eating with an apple? Great, right? There's so many very simple tools on devices like this that can change literacy for the children we work with. Take away this need to write everything down. Because writing something down for the children we work with doesn't always demonstrate their knowledge and understanding of what the world that they live in, does it? It demonstrates what they can do with a pencil, which is something entirely different. Let's try one extra different app. Let's try this one. This is a very simple thing. If you can take pictures, you can now do things like this. This is called Our Story. And it makes stories. So I'm going to show you an existing story, and I'll show you a very boring one first. Here's a very boring one.
We heard the Coromandel was beautiful.
This is my story. It's about my trip to New Zealand. Oh.
So we got in the car and went there.
We got in the car and we went there.
It rained.
It rained.
Then it rained some more. Lots of rain.
It was a lovely day. I stopped there. Let me show you a different book. This book is a book that was made by a young boy I work with called Owen. Now, Owen has cerebral palsy. He's got a little bit of speech. And I sat and watched him in his school having a lovely lesson at the beginning of September all about me. Because that's what we do in September. When we come a new school year, all the children all learn about everybody else. The fact that they've been in the same class for 10 years doesn't really matter. But we do all about me. And I sat and watched this lovely lesson where Owen was making a PowerPoint slide all about him. And it went like this. His classroom assistant said, Owen, you like blue, don't you? Let's make the background blue. And I'll just put your name in there, O-W-E-N. And now, wait, what else do you like? Oh, I'll tell you what you like. You like Ben 10, don't you? Let's get a picture of Ben 10. So the classroom assistant goes onto Google, Ben 10, downloads a picture, puts it onto the PowerPoint slide and says, there you are, Owen, there's your book. And Owen had just sat and watched. Remember this whole point about meaningful stuff? It's nice that he was there. It would have been so much better if he took part, wouldn't it? Actually did some of that himself. And there are lots of tools that allow us to do that. Google Images can be switch accessible. Did you know that? Amazing. There's a link in a handout. Press a switch, brings up the picture. Press it again, brings up the next picture. Fantastic. Here's Owen's book. Ready? All right, so it's not blue, and it doesn't have Owen's name in a wonderful font, but every single bit of that, Owen did himself. Every single bit. He learned how to take a selfie. That's an important skill in 2017. How on earth children could get by at all without having to learn the selfie? Important. Things like this, little tools like this, just switches back, thanks, yep. Little tools like this really, really make the difference between literacy being about pencils and pens and literacy being about expressing yourself. Let's look at, that app was called Our Story for iPad. It's in the handout, it's free, right? Or to be able to use it, you need to do 3 things. 1, move your finger, because you've got to touch things. 2, take a picture or have somebody help you do that. And the 3rd one, make a noise. It doesn't have to be speech, just any noise will do. How about you make a story, and in that story, there are 4 pieces of music. Rihanna, and some other of the new pop stars that I'm not familiar with. And you put a little YouTube video on each page, and when you turn the page, you've got your own jukebox. The pages will turn with a switch, by the way. How cool is that? Let's try now getting that switch into things that we do every day. Because you do this every day, right? Because every school in the world, and I've been all over the world, do this on a morning. They go, good morning, hello, how are you? Big Mac, hello, hello, all of that. Yeah? Look at what it works with. Switches, touch screens, mouse and rollerball, and eye gaze. So irrespective of whatever that person in the classroom uses, that will work for them. So everybody could use it, couldn't they? Interactive whiteboard, kids could come up and say good morning. Try with eye gaze, say good morning. Try with the switch, say good morning. Everybody gets to say good morning with the same tool. Let's just try this. You can sing along if you know the words. This is especially American good morning, John.
Good morning.
Nice and loud.
How are you? Just fine. Howdy, how do you do? Hello, good day.
You might have your own song.
Now that we're together, learning so much fun, the more of us, the better. So come on, everyone. Good
morning.
morning. Good morning. How are you? Just fine. Howdy, how do you do? Hello, good day.
So we can start to introduce things like that into our classroom rituals and things, can't we? They become part of what we do. So the switch user isn't just doing switches. They're just doing what everybody else does. But their switches are an important part of that, aren't they? One last one. So now let's get it into lessons. This is an example of a switch activity which would fit very simply into a lesson. So this is what's the weather like? Because I'm from England, right? And we're obsessed with the weather. That's what we do. That's why when our children are very, very young, kindergarten children, first thing we do is, what's the weather today? Well, it's raining because it's England. It's always raining in England, right? Again, works with switches, works with all of those things. If the song's the wrong song for you, turn the volume down, sing your own.
Like today,
Look outside the window.
look outside the window. Can you say?
Well, can you say what the weather's like today? Well, I can tell you what it was like yesterday. It rained yesterday. Today, because I'm here and working, oh, I have to switch.
It's a sunny day, sunny day. Go out in the sunshine, go.
Yeah. But you get the idea. Having tools that work for everybody. When we're in early years, especially, because in early years is the one place in the world where I don't confine myself to anything. I don't say, you are a switch user, and from now on you will always press a switch. Because I don't care what you use. As long as you're having fun doing that, and as long as you get involved and included in what the classroom's doing, I don't care. There's plenty of time to make those decisions, to decide what somebody is and what's their preference. But at this stage, I really don't care. If a child's pressing a switch with their head, I don't care. If they're touching the screen with their nose, I don't care. As long as they're touching the screen, as long as they're part of what we do, because that's really, really important. Listen, I've run out of time. This has been a very short session, and I've just skimmed the top of Little Waves. But on Friday, we're talking a little bit more in depth about all of those type of devices. So switches, touchscreens, iPads, rollerballs, joysticks, eye gaze, all of those things, and how all of those things can come together to become part of an inclusive classroom where children are motivated to do things, where we give them the opportunities to do things, and where most importantly, what we do has meaning and helps people move forward and make progress, because that's the important bit. I want to finish with one last thing, and it's this. I don't care what you use. I really don't care. Whatever technology you want to use, that's fine. Because the most important thing you can have with technology isn't a program, it isn't an app, it isn't any of that. It's kind of you, isn't it? And it's about your knowledge of the child you're working with, understanding what their needs are, what their motivations are, what drives them forward, how to reach them when they're difficult to reach. All of those things, that comes from you.